So as part of our homecoming celebration each year, we select one of our alumni to honor. I'm especially delighted to honor Brent Crane because I feel like he's a great example of the mission of BYU and the vision and mission of our college. So part of the vision of our college is to build a beloved community of Zion by empowering individuals to strengthen hearts, families, relationships, and societies. And part of the mission of the college is to encourage students, faculty, and staff to be engaged and compassionate citizens. And I feel like Brent is a great example of both of those things. At BYU, Brent majored in family science. That's what it was called at the time. We've changed our name many times. That was my home department as well. And he graduated from BYU School of Family Life in 1993. He's worked as executive director and CEO of the Food and Care Coalition in Provo ever since. In his position, Brent helps provide much-needed resources for the homeless and underprivileged communities in Utah County. We've had volunteers from the college that have been preparing and serving dinners there the last few weeks, and I had the opportunity to go last week with some of our faculty and staff, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful experience. So I'm so grateful that we had that opportunity. Brent's leadership and vision has directly led to the overall growth and success of the organization, which now serves clients from a 36,000 square foot facility in Provo. Gordon Lim, the director of social work, says, "The Food and Care Coalition is one of the nicest facilities for the homeless in the entire country, and that's because of Brent's leadership in securing funds and his dedication to making this happen." In addition to serving meals, the Food and Care Coalition offers services that make it a home base for people who have no home. It stands as a best practice service model for homeless delivery systems. Brent's career success is measured by individual lives blessed. His greatest satisfaction is knowing that individually and collectively we can improve the lives of those less fortunate by engaging, teaching, and providing appropriate opportunities for personal growth. Brent loves the outdoors, the stars, gardening, do-it-yourself projects, design, travel, and any activity with his family. He has a very balanced personality. Apparently he's half introvert, half extrovert, which lucky him. He and his wife, Shelley, reside in Mapleton, Utah, and have 4 children, 4 grandchildren, and a boxer named Bosco. So I'm really happy to turn the time over to Brent.
Can you hear me okay with off mic? Okay. Hook this up a little higher even. So I appreciate the introduction, all lies, including the picture my family pointed out. This is a picture of you like, doesn't look anything like it, but I'm grateful for this opportunity. I'm up on campus quite frequently with many of the other departments, speaking with students, and honestly a little embarrassed about being here. This award is really reflective of our community, not me, myself. We've got a wonderful, wonderful community and a religious passion, a diverse education, to be able to build a platform from, be able to address poverty as a part of that, get into working towards Zion. I don't know. Sorry. There we go. Okay, we on now? Well, we're off to a good start. Let's see if the slide's going to work. There we go. So go back here. So some of you have probably served down at the Coalition. A lot of students come there, as I was talking to Jordan and Laura before, and said we've actually had a lot of marriages happen because of people coming and serving together and finding their soulmate down at the Coalition. But this is our facility. It's on a 4.5-acre campus down in Provo. We have 11 structures, including 6 new apartment buildings that we just built, along with a new community center that is going to be a hub for volunteerism for our clients, as well as a hub for education and self-improvement and personal growth. But I want to start off today with a story. In my line of work, when I first started at the Coalition, I was just out of college. I was green and wet around the ears. I was somewhat naive, but I had a strong desire. I grew up in a farming community in Bear Lake Valley, Bear Lake, Idaho. Was taught a very strong work ethic. Wasn't the smartest guy in the world, but few people would outwork me. and I had a tender heart. I grew up with a disabled cousin. I lived in a ward for many years when I was first married, and my wife and I love our disabled community and the opportunities that we've had to serve and love them. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I think I kind of gravitated to the social sciences and to human services, is I had a love for people and I had a love for the underdog. But I'm going to tell you one of my failures. I had just come to the coalition. I'd only been there as the director for about 6 months. And as a new director of a small and growing organization, I had the opportunity to serve breakfast in the morning. So I would come in, serve breakfast, other staff would get there, and then I'd go upstairs, write grants, go out in the community, do public speaking, program development, and all the things associated with running an organization. And one morning I came, and our volunteers were there, and I was there, and we ran out of milk. And so I ran over. At the time, we were in a little small building, very tiny 1,200 square foot home that, served as our shower facility, our mill site, and kind of the home base for what we were doing in the community. Roach infested, bowed floors. I mean, it was terrible, okay? But we'd run out of milk. So I ran over to the store, and as I walked into the store, I ran into one of our clients who was developmentally disabled. Her name was Mary. And off in the distance, probably from here to the back of the room, she saw me and just lit up like a Christmas tree, and Brent, and she was all excited, and in a lapse of judgment, because of peer pressure, what I was worried about what other people would think, I turned my head. I moved away from her. I didn't acknowledge her. And in that moment, I immediately was hit with grief, with shame, with disappointment in myself, because I had been raised of goodly parents. As I mentioned, I kind of had a social justice bone. Instead of a funny bone, I had a social justice bone. And so I was just really disappointed in myself, and I sat there and I reflected, why? Why did I do that? Why was I so disingenuous? Why did I dismiss this young woman? Because she was disabled and I would be associated with her? Well, fortunately, in the scriptures, we have a similar example. So we all know the story of Peter, devoted follower of Christ, devoted disciple of Christ, pledged his undying discipleship to the Savior. And just hours before this situation, he had pledged his undying love for the Savior. And so when he was comfortable, obviously in the small upper room, they were talking, conversing with the disciples and the apostles. But Peter was put into a different situation. I like to call a little bit of what I'm going to talk about. The Lord likes to test our heart, right? He likes to test and see where our heart truly lies. And so much of life is an experience, right? As we go through and we raise our children, and we try to instill in them values and beliefs and morals to go out and live a good life. And then they interact with the world. And sometimes they fail, like I did this day, and sometimes they succeed. But like Peter, my heart was right. I love that young lady. But I was worried because of the peer pressure of what others may think of my association with her. And so, like Peter, his heart was right, but in the moment he failed because he let peer pressure get the better of him. Did it change who he was? I actually think the experience probably made him better, made him stronger. And so from that platform, I entered into my work at the coalition. And it was interesting, Laura kind of mentioned it, when they talked about the fact, they said, hey, we're going to give you an award, And, oh, by the way, somewhere down a little bit later, we want you to do a 40, 50-minute lecture. They told you about that a little bit later. No, I'm just kidding. But we talk about Zion, right? We talk about what that looks like. And, what are those principles? And we know that obviously Zion, whether it's the characteristics of Zion or the principles of Zion, we know that we should be unified in mind and heart. We know that we should be working towards righteousness and holiness, becoming a more righteous and loving people. And then thirdly, that there will be no poor among us. And that's, again, one of the reasons why I took this opportunity to take this job. Now, Spencer W. Kimball kind of couched it a little differently. He said, our service to one another, I've often said, any of those of you have heard me speak before, I kind of equate service with kind of the beginnings towards our maturity towards the pure love of Christ, towards true charity. Service isn't necessarily charity, but service can lead to charity if we take that service and we do it with good intent and with a love for our humanity. Okay? The second thing that President Kimball talked about was that we need to work. We need to work hard. We need to put in our best effort, and that best effort leads to self-reliance, right? And then lastly, consecration. What is consecration? It's giving up our self-interest for the benefit of others, and that consecration leads to a stewardship. So the topic for today's lecture was connection, the missing link. And so all of these things that we're talking about, what is the commonality of Zion? It's connection. It's binding with one another. And, research even, back in the day we didn't have this, but, as the department has grown, obviously there's a lot more research that's out there. There's lots of wonderful programs, right, that are out there in the world. But one of the things that make them succeed, and the research is showing this, whether it's dealing with addiction or homelessness or gang violence or any other myriad of social issues that are out there, the research is showing that connection is what is making the difference. That's what's taking a good program that's got good curriculum and making it successful and actually intervening in those social situations and improving them greatly. Connection to me kind of represents three different things. And I'm going to go to this next slide here, but there's connection to self, right? I mentioned, raising children. Connection to self, that's where our beliefs, our value structure, our desires, our motivation is, right? And then we have our connection to family and friends and community. And that's where we, human touch and bonding occur. And then lastly, we have connection to a higher power, where we find meaning in life, where we find purpose in life, where we find our true happiness in life, right? And so I want to share this picture. Some of you may recognize that. Any of you recognize who the young lady is to the right on the screen? Some of you may not. Okay. This is Pamela Atkinson. Pamela Atkinson is a well-known advocate for homeless issues here in the state of Utah. The Homeless Trust Fund is named after her. There's lots of projects that are named after her. But I just want to give you kind of a backstory to Pamela. Pamela came from England. She grew up in a large family, a poor home, and she said that she wanted to leave poverty behind. She didn't ever want to deal with poverty. And yet she left poverty, but never left the poor. And so when she came over here, she became an executive for IHC, and she is, you can actually see in the background here, Governor Herbert. She has influenced a lot of how our homeless service delivery system is shaped in the state of Utah. And I can tell you, if anybody has met Pamela, will know that it's rooted in love and compassion and belief in the potential of that person. So one day I was with Pamela and she shared an experience with me that's never left me, similar to the story of Mary, which is I continually think about and ponder about throughout my life. But Pamela, she would go in and she started to serve down in downtown Salt Lake. And she would serve meals, and then she kind of got a little dissatisfied with that and said, I don't want to serve meals. I just want to go connect with the people. And for years, she's been going down there to the Salvation Army and the Road Home and others. And as you can see here, this was not staged. This is who Pamela is. She goes up, she will hug you, she'll put your arms around you, she will shake your hand, she will look you in the eye, and she will talk to you as a human being. And one of the realities in working with homelessness in our community is a lot of them are disconnected from the community. Somehow, some way, whether by self-choice or by mental illness or by other means, they've been disconnected from the community. And here's Pamela connecting on a very deep and personal relationship level. And as we were talking, she says, I need to tell you, Brent, of a situation that happened just last week. She says, I was going down there doing all this other stuff. And a gentleman that had come through and she had hugged and she had talked to circled back around to her after he had ate his meal. And she went up to Pamela and she said, Pamela, she said, I just want to thank you. She says, when you put your arms around me and shook my hand, it's the first time that I had experienced human touch in 20 years. And I thought, how much more disconnected can you get? So when I talk about connection, this just isn't a bunch of words. And relative to the coalition, it was interesting. When I came into this work 34 years ago, believe it or not, this is what the service model looked like. If I was a homeless client, I had to go to the Food and Care Coalition. I had to go to DWS. I had to go to Social Security. I had to go to the food bank. I had to go to, Wasatch Behavioral Health. I had to go all these organizations. And if I have a child in tow, or I'm on public transportation, or I'm just walking, I have to traverse this community, and no agency's really close together, right? So they're having to go out and work through all these things. And when they go in, they're having to fill out the same paperwork at the first agency as they do the second and third and so on. About 90% of the data they had to do was the same. And so I thought, man, we're really siloed in our services. And so one of the things that we did at the coalition is we said, we're going to flip that dynamic. We're going to invert the arrows. And so my wife and I, we had the privilege of taking almost 400 or 500 youth up to, on a trek experience up in Wyoming. And so the wagon wheel's got a little special connection to us. But what we really wanted to do is that client's the hub, right? And for each of us, it's your mother, it's your father, it's your sibling, it's your child, it's your roommate, it's your friend. It's somebody that's struggling, right? We need to turn towards one another. And so one of the things that we did a few simple things. And I'm talking very subtle things where we kind of inverted this arrow for our clients. So we've got all kinds of services now. We've got medical, we've got dental, we've got behavioral health, we've got therapy, we've got counseling, we've got, of course, the food programs and showers and laundry and clothing and apartments and housing and all these wonderful things. But one of the things that we noticed was that if I am in a soup kitchen, if any of you have ever served, how many of you ever served in a soup kitchen? Okay, so a good half of you, at least. So you pick up that tray and you go down the line and you're serving my food on my tray. And to me, it just felt uncomfortable. It felt unnatural. So we just made a simple change at the coalition and said, we're going to serve you restaurant style. You're going to sit down in the dining room, very nice, very clean, very uplifting. in terms of quotes and thoughts throughout the facility. And we're going to serve you as if you're coming in like you're at a restaurant. Subtle change, big difference. Okay. Couple others. The visual, I kind of alluded to that, but when you walk into our facility, there's beautiful art throughout the building. There's inspiring quotes. It's not just a bland, stark white building, white walls, institutionalized, I would say. It was very homey. That was intentional. In fact, I actually had to fight my board a little bit to get that. They wanted to simplify it. Now, we weren't ostentatious. Our building isn't, it's not made out of the best materials, but we tried to make it as nice as we could with the resources that we had. Our new housing program, I just mentioned we built 6 new 12-plexes, so we have 72 new apartments that are on site. Beautiful, granite, kitchens, ADA kitchens, gig of Google Fiber internet to each unit. When you think of the homeless, sometimes we talk about table scraps, right? I thought in this community we can do better. And so, again, I don't take credit for this award. I've helped obviously create that vision, but it was the community that's come together to make this happen. And in lieu of a prayer, we, do a thought, we tell a joke, we let people know what's going on the property that day. And then our client services manager, it's about a soft handoff. That's one of the things that really was a stark reality to me. Now, you go out in the corporate world, you would expect a McDonald's and a Carl's Jr. and a Wendy's and a Burger King on opposite corners. And that competition leads to, probably them, as far as a consumer, that competition creates value for us because it should make them better. But I was surprised that working together and that altruism didn't exist in the human service sector. It was a dog world there as well. Limited grants, limited money in the community. We're fighting for each other. And so it was, hey, we got to undermine that group in order to make us look better so that we can get your funding as opposed to the other group around the corner. I didn't understand that. I'm like, we can be better, right? And so I just want to allude real quick. Steve Young recently just came out with a new book called The Law of Love. And there's a principle that he talks about in that book that I think pertains to what I'm talking about today. And he talks about transactional conversations or transactional relationships. And what I mean by that is I belong to a business association, used to be called Corporate Alliance, is now called the Tribe House. But they have 9 governing principles, and one of those is relationship arrogance. And the principle is that, you know what, we treat everyone the same. Whether you're the janitor, whether you're the case manager, whether you're the president, CEO, whether you're the board member, we treat you the same. Because you don't know where those true connections are going to come, where that value is going to come from. And so what Steve alludes to in his books as transactional relationships, our homeless network is very sensitive to that. Just a few years ago, Salt Lake was trying to rebrand their resource centers. And the mayor of Draper City had suggested that maybe, at a city council meeting, that maybe Draper ought to consider hosting one of those homeless resource centers. Well, you would have, if there had been tar and feather materials available, that mayor probably would have been tarred and feathered by a mostly LDS religious community. So when we talk about them when they're in the room as if they're out of the room, they're sensitive to it. They understand if my transaction is just to go to serve because I want to serve and experience the benefits, we can be better than that. Like service, sometimes we do service and we're doing it because somebody asked us, but are we fully vested? And are we doing it out of true love for one another? And that's the difference. And so to move from a transactional relationship to a Christ-centered, love-based relationship, it's subtle. It's subtle. And we all fail in that, right? We succeed in it at times, but we all fail in it. We have our family dynamic. I've got some of my family here today. I wasn't the perfect father. There were times that I made mistakes. But I hope that my children know that my heart has always been and always will be in the right. So isn't it ironic? So we talk about life, and I think one of the great ironies and paradoxes in life is that how many, if I was to ask the rhetorical question to the crowd, how many people can you count in your life right now that you have a deep connection to and with, and that you're completely satisfied with where that relationship lies right now in its current state? I think most of us would be hard-pressed to count on one or two hands how many people that we truly have that deep and abiding connection to. And I find it ironic because what is it that brings the best out in the world? It's our connection to one another. It's our forgiveness to one another. It's our acknowledgement to one another that builds and blesses, right? And so we're husbands, we're wives, we're children, we're parents, we're grandchildren, we're do-gooders, we're churchgoers. We have hobbies that we have interested in. We're pulled in a lot of different directions. And as I've gotten older, I've bemoaned in my own mind that, man, I wish I could spend more time with my mother or with my son or with my wife or with my grandkids. But life happens, and you have all these other responsibilities and stewardships. So it's one of the things I'm going to ask Heavenly Father. You want us to become a Zion community, right? What does that look like? When we look at the city of Enoch, right? Was it because they were perfect? Were they transfigured because they were perfect? I don't think so. I think it's because they took the two great commandments, love God and love neighbor, talking about Zion, moving towards Zion, right? And they did that better than any other society prior or since. That's why they were transfigured. It wasn't because they were perfect, because they loved God and they loved their neighbor. And so that's one of the challenges I have. I'll just briefly, I want to touch on President Oaks. So I was very appreciative of his opening comments. I loved the morning session of conference on Saturday here in early October. President Oaks, the church hasn't always come out and been as forward in what they're doing in the world. And one of my favorite things to do actually in between conference sessions is actually to look at the church report and to look at all the different things that are going on globally that the church is involved with. But President Oaks shared that the church this last year, it contributed almost $1 billion in humanitarian aid throughout the world. And our project, our new housing project, was one of those beneficiaries. And so it had a little more applicable meaning to me this year than in past years. But I look at that and I was further, appreciative because President Oaks talked about the fact that we had not only the church's involvement, but the members of the church outside of the information we were given and the statistics we were given. They recognized that we were anxiously engaged as a membership in our communities. And that's something that I think isn't recognized. There's a lot of tremendous good that is done outside of the church that we do, with one another. I do want to mention a couple things, and we're getting close because I want to leave a few minutes here for some questions and answers. But my wife and I had the opportunity to attend Ron Bartholomew, religion professor up here on campus. I haven't been able to confirm it. I heard he's not in very good health. But my wife and I, for several years, would go to an evening religion class. And all I can say, it was like eating manna. I mean, every time we went, it was amazing content. It was, it moved the needle on my thoughts and my actions. But one of the things that he talked about, and it kind of relates to what I was referencing to Steve Young's book in transactional relationships, is he talked about trackology. So in reference to our service to one another. So we get a young men's group, or we get a young women's group, or we get a BYU student group, and we go and do service. Well, we're doing it a lot because of my friends are going to be there. I'm doing it because my religious leaders wanted me to be there. But behind all of that is that desire and that opportunity for growth. And do we take that opportunity to move that forward from service into charity, right? And so one of the things he talked about, again, was what he called trackology. And he says sometimes we get in this mode where we're living our life based on a ledger or a checklist. And I hear this all the time. We come away from conference or we come away from church. And I think it's just part of us as human beings. We want it. It's not that it's bad, but it can be better. How many of us live a life based on lists? Well, here's what I want to do this fall, or here's what I want to do to further engage my family, or here's what I want to do to work on a personal weakness that I have, or whatever. We make these lists. When in reality, one of the best things we can do in life is to forget those ledgers. Forget the transactional ledger when we work with people and what is my self-motivation, because those relationships are doomed to fail because they're based in self-interest. They're going to corrode, they're going to rot, they're going to pass away, right? But a relationship that is connected in love with just being there, being with the person in the moment. So for all of those of you that are at family parties and you're always on your phone, stop. Please stop. Connect with yourself. I've been out of the Young Men's program for a few years, but I was kind of at the beginnings of it when we would be sitting there talking as a Young Men's group, and everybody's on their phone talking to each other through text, and we're 2 feet away from each other, right? The irony of that, right? We become a selfie world. It's all about us or me or that moment of time. With my wife and I and daughter and son-in-law just came back from Stowe, Vermont. Amazing, beautiful fall foliage, right? And we've taken all these wonderful pictures. But it's the process of being there that's the important thing. And so in my line of work, I can't go in and fix a homeless person. Okay? That's a transactional word. I need to love them. I need to love them for who they are and where they're at, and be there for them as a resource in their personal growth. Can't force it upon them. And I know that it sounds a little counterintuitive. Well, we can't, right? We know Satan's plan. His was one of coercion, right? Whereas the Lord's plan was based on love and compassion and consideration. So I'm grateful that I was taught those principles by my family. Real quick in closing, I wanted to just share, because in the conversation that I had, I was asked, well, what can we do as a department? What can we do as BYU students to go out there and achieve Zion? Well, I want to tell you a little bit just quickly about Alex McAlpin. Missionary, just returned about a year and a half ago from Colorado, serving a mission in Colorado. She got involved with a Catholic charity group that all they did is they went out and they met with homeless people in the parks. No motivation, no hidden agenda, no transactional relationship there. They just wanted to go out and meet with people and talk with the homeless community. And when she came home, she's like, I want to do something like that. And so she approached me, and we talked with the Center for Service and Learning and got all the insurance and all the other, things that you have to do to, make those connections. And now Soul Food is a BYU student-driven program. So if you haven't heard about it, or if you're interested in it, I encourage you to go to the Center for Service Learning and inquire. But they come down now every week. I don't even know when they come. They just come, and they sit in the dining room, and they sit with our clients. They're not there to provide services. They're just there to connect with them as a human being. And every once in a while, every couple of months, we do an information dump, and we exchange and what's going well, what's not going well. Is there concerns that you have, or is there things that the clients are talking about that we should maybe be more considerate or attentive to, right? Because as a staff, we're busy. We're running from here to there to everywhere. And it's the irony, right? We're here a social service organization, and we're busy with busyness, and we don't have time to sit down with our clients over a meal, right? We got to let BYU students come in and do that. So that's one project that BYU is doing right now. The second one is we just built a hydroponic greenhouse. And so we serve 80 to 100,000 meals a year at our facility. But one of the interesting things happens, we get dumped on in the fall during harvest season, and we get corn on the cob coming out our ears, and bell peppers and tomatoes and everything like that. And then the faucet turns off, and we don't see any. And so we thought, well, how can we build a more sustainable, nutritious meal program for our clients? And so I was introduced to Matt Arrington and Jean Albarn, who are with the plant science department up at BYU. Matt's a PhD, and his specific interest is in hydroponics. And so we just co-authored a grant with their department that is going to benefit the Food and Care Coalition. So the cool thing is students from BYU now are going to be able to go down and help us run the hydroponic greenhouse with our clients who want to learn those hydroponic principles, which is really cool. That's what's really neat about hydroponics, is it's scalable. If I have a 150 square foot flat in New York City, I can do hydroponic gardening in my apartment. If I've got 10 acres out in Spanish Fork, I can do hydroponic gardening, or I can do it in my own home, right? So it's scalable. But we're just really excited about that partnership. And again, what's the key? It's not the produce that's put on the table at the end of the day. It's the relationships and the connections that are built. We started a dental clinic. Dr. Eric Vogel, a good friend of mine, passed away a few years ago. Wonderful human being. Talk about an angel among us. He was a saint. And just a beautiful, wonderful human being. He helped start the dental clinic that's in our facility. And we had clients that we knew were struggling with addiction. And we didn't make the connection. We weren't able to push them towards change or encourage them or love them towards change. It was a hygienist that was there serving one day that looked in a gentleman's mouth, and he said, I can tell that you've got an addiction problem, and I can't really solve your problem with your teeth until we address that. And that conversation led to him getting into addiction recovery after we couldn't do it for several years. Now, partly it was the right timing, right? For all of us. Sometimes it's just about timing of hearing the right message at the right time. So, brothers and sisters, and I look forward to Laura speaking with you down the road. I would love to see some research done by the department. I would love to see our nonprofit community come together with the College of Home, Family, and Social Sciences and go, hey, what are our problems? What are our challenges? What research can we engage in as students and as a university that can move the needle and improve our service delivery system here as a nonprofit community? I'd love to have those discussions. But in the meantime, you can serve, and there's lots of other ways you can do that. And then, like I said, lastly, I talked about connection, and connection's really about binding. And where do we learn about binding, in the church, right? When we go to church each Sunday, there's binding ordinances that are intended to bind us together or bind us to God. Remember, I talked about the 3 levels of connection: to self, to our family and community, and to God, right? Temples bind us together. And so my hope and prayer, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, is that we take that opportunity from this moment forward and look for ways that we can truly connect with those we love and let them know of their value and their worth, and what you mean to them. And do that for as many other people that you can. And I leave that with you and challenge with you in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. So questions?
So just as we transition to questions here, I need to get to the end of your presentation here because we have a slide for the students. We're so grateful for Brent taking the time to visit with us. What a wonderful representation of the things we care about in the college. And we wanted to remind the students to scan your XP points here and fill out the quick survey before you leave. But we'd like to turn the time over for questions. So we have a microphone somewhere? No? Oh, Brent's going to just repeat the question. So just raise your hand and he can call on you. We have probably time for a couple of questions before we're done.
Hot crowd, hot crowd. That was a Grinch reference, by the way, that we like the Grinch in my family. Come on, you got some questions. Throw them out there. Don't be shy. We're just grateful to live in such a wonderful, right here. So we got a foundation called the Broadbent Foundation contributed. New Skin had just shut down about a $500 million hydroponic plant that was somewhat of a failed experiment that they were doing. And this is where the Lord's hand touches our organization every day. The day we found out that our BYU grant that we initially wrote was turned down, the very next day, New Skin, Doug Lund from New Skin called me and says, "Hey, Brent, I heard you guys are doing a hydroponic plant. We got a bunch of equipment we'd love to donate to you." And so anyway, so that, and then we've got, and we've rewritten that grant that was just submitted last week with the greenhouse department up at BYU. So we're hoping to get that up and running here in the next few weeks and be able to experiment and learn our ways through that process here. So, the homeless population is pretty broad, right? It's a continuum. It's everything from people coming out of addiction to mental health to people that are, in our economy right now with inflation, people that are struggling to make ends meet, that have never, been there before, and everybody in between. So it's a very diverse group, mostly singles, single men, single women. We do get some families, but those families we try to connect with other appropriate resources and get them rehoused as quickly as possible. Yeah, and I don't know if it's necessarily pride. I think it's just some of it's ignorance. Some of it is experience. So you look at the road home down in Salt Lake. They had been given an opportunity to build a new facility, and they were kind of resistive to that. And I was surprised. But the road home, you could walk within 3 or 4 or 5 blocks and know you were within a homeless community. And so part of it is balancing that compassion as a community with also accountability. So at our facility, we require a no loitering zone around our facility. We promise that to the city. So I recognize in terms of desirability, not everybody wants a homeless facility next to their apartment or their house or their business. I get that. And so that's a key part of the discussion that was not happening. So a lot of it is coming together as a community, acknowledging each point of view, and then trying to find the best road out of that. And so for us, it was about, hey, we can still manage, and that's where programs are either successful or not, is if they're engaged with that clientele and balancing the compassion and the accountability. So it wasn't that they're bad people. But what was the message? What was the unintended consequence and message to those homeless individuals? And one of the homeless gentlemen that was living in his truck got up at that same meeting and said, wait a second, I'm a member of your community. You're talking about me this way. And so I think it's just finding understanding, finding common ground, and then building from there. And I've had to do that myself politically here in the Valley. Other questions? I know you guys got to get to other classes and stuff, but my email, I think I put it up there, but you can look up foodandcare.org. My email, brentc@foodandcare.org. And I really do love connecting with the student population. I do it a lot. Sometimes I can't do it during the day, so I'll get to it at night when things are quieting down. My wife and I are empty nesters now, so we finally got the kids out of the house. Now we get the grandkids, which is awesome. So, Warren County. So anyway, thank you.
Well, again, we're so grateful for Brent coming here and reminding us to build relationships with one another. Just remember to grab a treat on your way out, a homecoming treat. We also have a gift. Sorry, you just sat down. We have a gift for you. So if you could come back up.
Thank you. Appreciate it. We'll give you a hug.
I was going to say, I think he's a hugger.
Thank you.
So thank you so much. And again, for those students who don't know, be sure to scan the QR code for your experience points, and then we'll post the winners on our social media and send you an email, okay? Thank you so much.